Hello, all my cruising and travel fans. It's Rob here from Cruising and Travel. In today's episode, we are going to be talking all about solo traveling. And I think I know a guy that has done it at least once, twice, maybe a handful of times. Who knows how many? So I reached out to him and he said for sure he's going to come on out. And I'm sure you all know him. His name is Mr. Dewey Skis. So if you're ready, Dewey, give me that thumbs up so we can rock and roll. And we'll bring him on up. Here he is. Hello, Mr. Dewey. How are you all doing?
Hello, everybody. I've got one minor complaint.
What's your minor complaint?
Where's the masseuse for the green room?
The masseuse. I do not know.
I thought there was going to be one there ready to take care of me. So,
Well, I will put the order in for the next show. And I can't guarantee they'll show up, but I can put the order in.
okay, we'll let it slide this time.
Okay. So I believe you've done at least one, maybe two or more solo cruises before?
Yep, I said I've done one or two, or well, I've done 70 cruises just since COVID ended, and probably at least 60 of those were solo because I haven't had company on very many of them. So,
Yeah. And hopefully one of these days I can maybe convince myself to do it, but
you got to give it a try because it's not as bad as a lot of people think. When I first started, I was afraid I wouldn't like it, but I had my wife had passed away. I had nobody to travel with, and I was looking to get a vacation to kind of just run away and hide. And so I thought, what the heck? I'll give it a try. Oh my gosh, that was the best thing I could ever do. I had so much fun. I mean, there's nothing like being an old widow on a cruise because you get everybody's attention. And I'm such a shy and quiet, reserved person. So I was making friends right and left. And about halfway through the cruise, I felt like I was Mr. Popularity because people were calling out my name, both the staff and the passengers. It's like everywhere I went, it's like everybody knew who I was.
it's like I'm popular.
Yeah. So it started a chaotic trend, and now look at me.
Yes, all right. So the first one I got lined up is an icebreaker question. And it goes with, would you ever go on a solo cruise by yourself, or do you prefer traveling with friends, family? Great way to start getting your audience to chat right away. So let's chat away, audience.
Well, I, of course, enjoy traveling solo, mainly because I don't have to keep track of anybody else. I don't have to ask anybody else's permission. I don't have to check in with anybody else. But I do also enjoy the opportunities I get to travel with some friends. I've never traveled with family on a cruise anyway. I've traveled with a few different people, and I've got a friend now that we're about, see, in March we'll be on I think our 5th cruise together. And so whenever we get a cheap opportunity or something, I do like to travel with somebody because then you got somebody to talk to and share experiences with. And he hasn't cruised near as much as I have. So it's nice to experience the things that I've gotten used to in a fresh new look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I was telling you before the show, for me, I haven't yet traveled solo, but hopefully one of these days I will pull the plug, we'll call it, and actually do it. Because, you can't always count on your friends and family to line up their schedule with your schedule or vice versa.
One of the best ways to get used to it is to do it on a group cruise. Because if you're traveling solo, at least you know other people that'll be there already. And so you've got people that you can talk to and see and do things with, but you still have your privacy and your kind of little solidarity place that you can go and get away from it all. My first cruise, I didn't know anybody on it at all, but that didn't last very long because I make friends. I'm such a shy and quiet and withdrawn little person. So I made friends very quickly, and
And then
still friends with a lot of the people that I met on that cruise. Matter of fact, I was texting one of those people today. So
yeah, and then the question I can always come down to is, really, are you really traveling solo or not? Because before you know it, you are talking to other people,
well,
and
yes.
you're mingling with them.
And that's often what I tell
And,
people because I get
and
a lot of people ask me for advice if they're thinking of going solo. And it's like, well, you might be sleeping solo, but you're really not traveling solo because you've got a whole ship full of people. And it's real easy to strike up a conversation because you already have two things in common. One, you all like to travel, and two, you all like to cruise. So once you have those two, you can go anywhere with a discussion after that.
yeah, and like as my mother says, for me, basically, I can't take you anywhere because you're bound to start talking to somebody,
Yeah.
and then
And
you somehow get into a conversation. Like I recall, I would say on my last or second last cruise, it would actually happen in the dining room, and the staff was asking this lady from, I believe she was from New York, if she's traveling solo, and like it. We would gain the tension of she was feeling a little out of place with being asked those kind of personal questions. So eventually he got shooed off, and next thing you know, like we started talking to her, and she said she used to do it cruise by herself all the time.
some people are not socially inclined where it's really hard for them to strike up conversations with strangers and stuff like that. And oh, excuse me. And often when you are cruising solo, there are solo groups on the cruise. So if you're traveling by yourself, you can hang around with other people that are traveling by themselves. And that kind of gets rid of some of that fifth wheel type syndrome when you're always hanging around couples and stuff. So if you're traveling with a bunch of, or if you run across a bunch of other people that are solo, and it does just because you're solo doesn't mean you're looking for a hookup or for a date or something like that. That just means
Exactly.
you're by yourself. And a lot of people are afraid of that when they travel solo, that it becomes like a singles cruise. And it can, but I find it a lot more often it's just people like having somebody who understands what they're going through they can talk to. I don't find near as many hookups as I'd like to.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before, it's like you got two things in common. You like to travel, you like to cruise.
Yep. And on this next cruise that I'm going to in November, it's the Rock and Roll Cruise for Helping Hands for Cruising. It's on NCL, and I've never been on an NCL, so I'm in one of their solo studios.
Yeah,
And they are like the best cruise line as far as having room for solo travelers. Now the room is smaller. It's not, like a suite or even a balcony suite. It's just an interior room. But I always look at your cabin on a ship. It's like your bedroom in your house. You sleep there. You get up the rest of the time. You're in the living room, in the kitchen, or whatever. So I don't care how big the room is, as long as there's enough room for me to be in it. That's all that really matters. And in the solo studios, they have two decks. I don't know how many rooms total, but they have a lounge area that's only available for those that are staying in the solo studios. So you already have a good common area to meet other people that are traveling solo. And from there you can build friendships or just have somebody to talk to or plan things together, whatever you care to do. And that's a good way to get started.
exactly. So we'll dive on into the next one, and it is why solo cruising. And it's talk about the freedom and flexibility solo cruising gives. Make your own schedule dining, and when you want, do what the adventures you enjoy.
Yeah. And that was what I discovered the primary like about traveling solo on that first cruise, because most of my life I had been always with or around somebody. My mother lived with me for a long time till she died. And then when I got married, I had a wife. So I was always doing something with somebody, keep helping keep tabs with somebody, checking in with somebody. On that first solo cruise, I didn't have to check in with anybody. I could do what I want when I wanted and not feel guilty about it. And it was wonderful. If I didn't want to go somewhere, I didn't go. If I wanted to just sit around and be lazy, I could do that. If I wanted to stay up late and go to the shows or hear the music, I could do that. And I really found that, for so many years I didn't look out for me, and that's a great way to look out for yourself.
Yeah. So if you want to roll into the stateroom at 5 o'clock in the morning, you roll in at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yep. Of
It's
course, I don't do
you
that
go at
too
your own
often.
pace.
What was that?
You go at your own pace.
Yes. And I like that when you don't have, you don't have to pay attention to where you're going. If you decide to make a U-turn and go somewhere else, you don't have to worry about, okay, you got to let so and so know that's what you're doing. You just go. And it's a lot to me. I like that freedom and that liberty to be me and do whatever I want without anybody having a say so in it.
Yeah, for sure. Which then that probably will cover number three is biggest concerns people have,
Well, just
and it rolls in with what is the number one thing that people would make you nervous about cruising alone: safety, cost, or being lonely.
and all three of those are very good concerns, because just like some of the things that I liked about being solo, about being free, not having to check in with somebody, all that kind of stuff. Some people like that. Some people like to have a more rigid schedule. They like to have somebody with them at all the time to help them feel more at ease. They like to share things, immediately. And like you said in your list, there's always the safety factor. But fortunately, on cruise ships, they're probably one of the safest ways you can travel these days, because it's like a little city on the sea. So they've got their own security and stuff. You don't hear about near as many things happening on a ship as you do in some of the port towns that you may visit. And the cost is probably the biggest thing, because it is quite expensive in most cases to travel solo. Sometimes it can be up to 2 times as much, because they expect you to pay for two people, even if only one person's in your room. Now, you usually only have to pay one person's port fees and taxes. But I always thought, well, in their logic, they're thinking, well, that you're depriving them of one whole person that could have some spending power on the ship. But then I look at it this way: I'm only eating the food of one person. I'm only dirtying the linens of one person. And all these things, just like that, they're worried about me spending. I'm also saving them because there's not two people doing it. So it works both ways. Some cruise lines are very receptive to pricing, where they'll only charge you like maybe 150% or even less. But these days, with popularity, other than NCL, they have some good rates on their single cabin or single or solo studio cabins.
Yeah.
Most of them anymore, they're just, it's everything is sold to the max, so they don't need to try to appeal to anybody. They can sell it to two people just as easy as to one. So it's hard to find good pricing.
Yep, exactly. Like I had one booked in a solo studio, but unfortunately it kind of got pulled the plug because another cruise opportunity was presented to me that was better.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, pull the plug on that one, put the plug in the new one.
Yeah. On this rock and roll cruise, when I first booked it, I just booked an interior cabin. But then, was it this summer? I guess it was. I started to learn more and more about the solo studio. So I checked with the the travel agent guy, and I said, well, can you see if a solo studio is available? I'd like to experience that. Well, the solo studio was actually cheaper than it was for me to travel in a solo interior, because in a solo interior, even though it's an interior, they still expect you to have two people in the room, whereas a solo studio, they know there's only going to be one person. So that helped make it a little more affordable. Virgin has a few solo cabins. I haven't placed it, so I don't know how different they are. But and MSC used to have some really good pricing on solo, but now I think it's because of the supply and demand issue. They tend to be they won't book you solo, but they will let you book it for two people, and then one person just doesn't show up. They don't tell you that, but so you're still having to pay a higher price. But they used to have very good low prices on solo. So it depends from cruise line to cruise line how much you're going to pay to do it. But it is nice to know. And then the loneliness bit, of course, if you're not a social person, it will get a little lonely. And some people like that. But other people, if you don't want to be alone, all you have to do is go strike up a conversation. It's not hard to do.
Give me a quick one. I got to turn off this alarm over here.
See, even he's Mr. Popularity there. So many people trying to get a hold of him. But if you've been traveling solo before, speak up in chat and let us know about some of the experiences you've had. Not everybody's turn out to be good experiences. Mine, fortunately, have. I don't think I've really had a bad experience traveling solo. There's a time or two where traveling solo, I've been in what I call a bad frame of mind, where I just didn't feel like being sociable, and I spent a lot of time in my cabin. But that doesn't happen too often, fortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. That was number 2. So number 3 is biggest concerns people have.
I think we just covered that.
Oh yes, we just did cover that one. All right, let's move down to number 4. Cost of solo cruising.
Yeah, we've partially covered that too.
We partially covered that. Would
solo
you
cruising nowadays, for the most part, it costs you as much as two people, except you're only paying the port fees and taxes for one. Mm-hmm. But if you can, get a deal, so sometimes they'll have offerings. Some cruise lines have, cheaper alternatives, and most of my cruises now I do with casino deals, and sometimes the casino offer is just for one person. Sometimes it's for two. And whenever I get a casino deal, the cruise is free, but you still have to pay the port fees and taxes. So if I can find somebody to go with me, it's a cheap alternative, because you're not paying near as much as the full price of a cruise. And but if you are traveling by yourself, it does get pricey. I've spent a lot of money over the last few years cruising because I cruise solo, but I liked that, and I liked not having to be responsible for anybody else.
Yep, exactly. And then we've touched base a bit on this one, the safety tips. Do you think cruising is safer than land vacations for solo travelers?
I definitely think solo cruising is safer than land. You hear too many stories of people on land that get kidnapped, mugged, attacked, or whatever. And being solo in an environment like that is just inviting trouble, because if you travel in pairs or in groups, it's less likely something's going to happen to you. Whereas on a cruise ship, you may be solo, but there's not near as much crime. I'm not saying there's none, but there's not near as much crime that happens on a cruise ship. And you're not very likely to encounter the kind of troubles you would on land. So even if you're not with people, you're always around people. There's very few opportunities where you're totally by yourself and giving your chance to be in danger somewhere. And as long as you keep your door locked when you're in your room, or you keep your eyes and ears open when you are like walking down the hallways to your cabin if there's nobody around or something, then you're pretty safe.
Yeah. Yeah, you're pretty safe because, like, as Dewey saying, and I would say you're safer on the cruise ship than walking down a street on land.
Yep, I would much rather be on a cruise ship by myself than in many of the ports that I've been to by myself, because sometimes you're always kind of looking like, okay, what are they up to? And I get more nervous on land than I ever do on a ship. So, and I'm a big guy, so I can imagine what women or smaller people, what they feel like when they're more vulnerable.
Yeah, and sometimes it may be like, okay, is there somewhere I'm supposed to be by now, or should I be doing something by now? But at the end of the day, it's your vacation.
Yeah.
So
and
do it, please.
That's one of the things many people fail to realize when they're on a cruise, whether you're solo or with people. This is a vacation. It's not all about how much can you do in the shortest period of time, and you got to do everything. Relax, enjoy, do what you like, don't do what you don't like, but don't feel like you have to do everything. If you don't get everything done on one trip, go on another one sometime and do some more things. Because if you leave your vacation more stressed than when you got there, you haven't accomplished too much.
Exactly. Like, I remember on one sailing, there was this comedian, exact same show, but they had an early show and a late show. And because we were traveling with my niece and nephews, I had to stay back and watch my niece and nephews while my mom went to the early show. Then when she comes back, she'll watch them, and I can go off to the evening show. Well, unfortunately, when the evening show came lying around, my mom said, "If you're gonna go, you better get going." Yeah, I'll go in a few minutes. Well, a few minutes came and gone, and I still didn't move. I had no energy left in me.
That can happen, especially when you're on the go all day long.
I had full plans on going to the show, but just my energy level said, "Yeah, nope, it's not in you."
Yep, I've had that happen many times where I've had all kinds of plans in the evening, but sometimes that doesn't happen because you don't get wore out.
And at the end of it, my mom said, "You didn't really miss nothing much."
Yeah, and depending on which cruise line you're on, some of the comedians just aren't worth seeing anyway. So Carnival, I think, has the best comedians.
Carnival does have the best. I normally sail a lot of Norwegian. I've came across some really good ones, and some other ones, yeah, not so much.
That's one of the things I'm looking forward to with this cruise, since I've never been on a Norwegian. There's a lot of new experiences I get to try and see. So even though I'm not a novice cruiser, I'm novice on NCL, so I'll still have some of that oddness, that you get when you're first time on a cruise or on a ship and stuff. And I've been on so many cruises that sometimes I don't even know where I'm going because it doesn't matter. It's all about being on the ship and being around people. And if I've been on the ship a number of times, it's like, oh, okay, I know my way around here. I don't have to go exploring. And if it's a new ship, then I especially in the morning, I just love to get up and go exploring the ship when it's quiet and it's not crowded, and you can, see everything, take pictures, and you're not fighting all the crowds. And especially if you get up early enough where you can watch the sunrise, because just as good as the sunsets are on a cruise ship, the sunrises to me are even better if you get up that early.
Yeah, like maybe I would call myself now a veteran on Norwegian, because, like I said, I sail a lot of Norwegian. I've done about 6-8 ships of Norwegian, if not more. And when it comes down to being a rookie, I'll be a rookie on my actual upcoming cruise with Royal Caribbean.
There you go.
And I'm looking forward to that cruise because not only is it my first Royal Caribbean cruise, but it's also the Booze Cruise 3.0.
There you go.
So it's a group cruise that is not really a group cruise because you book with whoever you want to book with. And unfortunately, we don't have too many people booked on that cruise, but that's okay. The ones that are going, well, they'll enjoy it.
Sometimes the best cruises don't need a large group because you just get lost in the shuffle with a large group. I've been on cruises with over 100 people in the group, and half the time, I mean, you don't even know who's all in the group. There was one cruise we went on, we all had shirts for the cruise, and I ran across people on the day that we left the ship in the elevator that had our shirts on that had no idea who they were. I'd never met them, never seen them anywhere, but yet they were part of our group. And then I've been on groups with just 6 or 8 or 10 people, and that is so much more comfortable to be with, because then you're not fighting crowds, you're not fighting for attention. You all get to share, and I like a smaller group better anyway. And I've been booked on a number of Norwegian cruises. They were all group cruises, but every one of them got canceled for one reason or the other, be it COVID or some other reason that they got canceled, and I didn't make it on them. So this time, hopefully this one won't get canceled.
Yeah, well, but by the sounds of it, it sounds like it's not going to get canceled.
Yeah.
But
we're doing our best to make sure of that.
But the biggest group cruise that I have ever heard of was called the Vloggers Cruise.
Yeah, and I was originally booked on that one, but then I canceled just because there were so many people on there. I thought, it's going to be a zoo, and to me that didn't sound fun. And I'd much rather have smaller groups of people, because then you get a group that large, you don't get a chance to really know anybody, because there's so many people. You're constantly trying to meet and see people, and you don't have enough time to spend together and build any kind of bonds or relationships.
Yeah, like I think I heard, I have to look up the actual numbers, but I believe I heard there was about over 1,000 people on that cruise.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Just within that group. Yeah. And you had little mini channels to big, huge channels.
And even that was very clustered, because you had, like, even on any kind of group cruise, you always have cliques of people. Well, you had the biggies that were sponsoring the thing, and they were always doing their thing. And then you had other groups of people. So it was kind of like mini group cruises all in one big group cruise, but there was very little association amongst everybody. So I'm glad I don't feel like I missed out on anything there.
Yeah, like during that cruise, I couldn't make it because I was already booked on another cruise out of another cruise port. But before we get any further, let's welcome on in our first viewer in the chat, Michael's Adventures. Welcome on in.
Hey there, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
And since we are talking about the Booze Cruise 3.0, let's play that promo.
The Booze Cruise 3.0, hosted by Rob from Cruising on the High Seas and Travel. Ports of call: Costa Maya, Mexico; Roatan, Honduras; Belize City, Belize; Cozumel, Mexico; out of Tampa, Florida; Costa Maya, Mexico; Roatan, Honduras; Belize City, Belize; Cozumel, Mexico. Aboard the Grandeur of the Seas out of Tampa, Florida. Sailing October 25th to November 1st, 2025. Book today for this amazing sailing with any travel agent.
And yes, that is the Booze Cruise 3.0 happened this year in October in Tampa Bay, Florida.
I almost got excited today because I thought I finally got a casino offer for that cruise, and I started to look at it and I checked the date, and it's like, because a lot of times when I find them, I've been finding them for either just before that cruise or just after that cruise. And I was looking through the list and I found one that was on October 25th, and I thought, hot dog, finally, but it was the wrong ship. Well, it was close.
It's like, hot diggity dog. I
Yeah,
hit the jackpot.
I thought I finally got one, but
What ship did it happen to be on?
it was on Enchantment.
Enchantment?
Yep. But when I saw that date, because I'm so used to just looking down the sides to find the date available before I look at the ship, and I got all prematurely excited until I looked and saw it wasn't on the correct ship.
It's like, oh,
Matter of
so
fact,
close.
stuff I got in the mail today, I don't think either one of them even had the Grandeur on it anywhere. Nope. Nope, no Grandeur at all on either one of these. So,
well, as they say, better look next time.
yeah. Well, there's still time. I got on a cruise this February, I think it was, on MSC within a week or so of the sailing due to an offer, and it was a great offer. They paid everything. The only thing I had to pay was a $400 deposit, which I got back in casino credit. I didn't have to pay the cruise, the port fees, the taxes, the tips, the Wi-Fi or anything. It was all covered. So you never know when you'll get a good offer. You just got to keep your eyes open.
Gotta keep your eyes open and just be ready to hit that button.
You bet.
Yep. So the next point I came up here with was talk about meeting people on board, in which we've constantly been talking about this throughout the show so far. Would you rather meet new friends at shows and activities, or keep your trip more private?
I am not one to keep my trip private very often. Like I said, there's been one or two times maybe where my mind wasn't in the right frame of mind, or I wasn't feeling really up to being sociable, but that's rare for me. But I like to meet people. And when you meet somebody, especially if it's somebody you feel like you click with and you can have fun with, then you like to go do the things they're doing. I remember on one of my Virgin cruises when I was traveling with somebody, we met a couple in one of the events we were in, and we ended up then spending time with that couple on all kinds of activities the rest of that cruise, because we kicked it off well together. And we just kept, well, what are you doing after this? Well, we're going to do that. Well, that sounds good. Let's go do that. And the next thing you know, we were just constantly doing things together. So you can easily, build friendships, and some of them last an eternity. Some of them last just till disembarkation. So. And I would rather meet people.
Yeah, just give me a second.
Do what?
Just give me a second. My mom came down and asked me a question.
Okay. But I like to meet people, especially if there's any meetups. You can go to the solo or the singles. I don't like to go to the singles because generally, being the fact you're at the singles meetup, they think you're looking for a partner. And it's like, that's not always the case. Sometimes I just want to be a chance to meet people, but a lot of ships will have solo meetups, and it's a good way to meet people, find people that have similar likes, so you can do things together while you're on the ship. And then once you start going to events, you see other people around you and stuff, you get to talking, and it just kind of grows from there.
Are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take my shower.
Okay. All right. Yeah, like for me, like I probably would just meet up with people with at the shows and activities because like keeping it private, I want to I just want to sit back and relax and kind of do my own thing. That's the only way I really want to keep it private.
And if that's the what people like, that's great. And it's nice to be able to do things privately, but not alone. Sometimes it's nice that you can go where you're not going to be harassed and bothered. And if you go to the show and you sit by yourself, you may strike up a conversation with somebody around you, but then you may not. It's like it works either ways. And if you're not a real talkative person, people aren't usually pushy and it's like, well, why aren't you talking or anything like that? So it can go both ways. So it's often nice to do things at your pace, the way you like to do them, without having to worry about anybody else's input.
Yeah, exactly. And then number 7 is cabin choice for solo cruisers. If money wasn't an issue, what kind of cabin would you choose for a solo trip?
If money wasn't an issue, I'd always stay in the fancy. No, I wouldn't. I would stay in a balcony. I was about to say I would stay in the fanciest suite available, but as a solo, having a big suite means squat when you've got nobody there to share it with.
Mm-hmm.
I was on one Alaska cruise. I had built up a whole bunch of credits during COVID on Holland America. And it's like every time one canceled, I rebooked. And then every time one canceled, you got extra credits. And they just it was like I couldn't spend my credits quick enough, it seemed. And so I went on a trip to Alaska in one of their Neptune suites, which is gorgeous, plenty of room. I've been in a similar suite with another person, and there's still plenty of room, even with 2 people in it. But I was in it all by myself. So there was storage in that place I didn't even know existed till the day I left, when I was checking to make sure I hadn't left anything behind. It's like, oh, I didn't know this was here. And so if you have all that room and nobody to share with, it really isn't that impressive. But if you have somebody with you, whether it be a partner or friends or something, then it makes a big difference. But otherwise, most of my cruises when I started was always in the balcony cabin, because I do love to stand out on my balcony when we're pulling into port or pulling out to port or watching the sunset or watching the sunrise. One ship, this is funny. I was on the first 2 days were sea days, and I sleep in my birthday suit. So when I got up in the morning, I just went out on the balcony to see the water, because it's like nobody's there to see me. The second day I go out and I do the same thing. Well, the third day we're pulling into port, so I put on some clothes and I go out there and I happen to look up, and lo and behold, what's right above me? The wing bridge of the bridge with the glass floors. And it's like, thank goodness there was nobody. Hopefully there was nobody in those areas when I was out naked those first 2 days. But otherwise, I travel more in interior now just because it's cheaper. But and the bad thing too, when you travel solo in a room like a balcony or something like that, if you're not in your room to enjoy it, it doesn't really matter, because the solo cabins have just as much room as a balcony cabin most of the time. They just don't have the balcony, or they don't have a window. And so if you don't spend a lot of time on your balcony, then or if you only spend it at night, you're not seeing anything anyway. So,
well, the way I like to look at it is, if you have a an interior cabin, technically you still have a balcony. You just have a massive balcony.
Yeah,
exactly. And it's called the outside of where the general public area are.
Yep. And that's the way I always look at it when I'm in an interior. It's like, I can still get up early and go watch that sunrise. I just go out on deck to do it. And so it doesn't, I don't have to have my own private balcony to do that. And so it doesn't bother me. Now, in these solo studios on NCL, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they have a monitor on the wall that acts like a window. I can't remember if it's on those ships or if it was on something else, but I always thought that's because I use even a solo an interior cabin is great if you are a person that's very sensitive to light of any sort and you have to sleep in total darkness, because no matter what time of day you want to go to bed, it's dark. And I usually have my TV screen on with the bridge camera on, so I can tell when it's daylight, because you look at that and it's like looking out a window. You can see when the sun's up. But at night, even on those screens, usually you don't see anything because it's dark out.
Yeah, like for me, it doesn't matter what kind of cabin I have. Before I go to bed, I always make sure the bathroom light is on, but the door is just a crack open. So now I have a little light guiding me to the washroom.
Yeah, you don't want to be stubbing your toes on furniture.
And then at least I know my way to and way back from, because I just have that little light, which that's all I really need to get me there.
Oh yes.
And actually, if I can't see it, it means whoever I'm traveling with is in there. But they'll be out shortly, so then I can go.
And I've traveled with people who don't like light at all. Even the little bit of light that comes in under the door can be too much for them. Or I've traveled with one person one time. I've got this charger block that has all kinds of USB ports in it and stuff, and it's got these big bright numbers that show you when things are charging. That was too much light for that person. They wanted me to cover that up every night. And so, and some rooms, they have night lights that kick on automatically when they detect motion. So if you've got somebody in the room sensitive, that can upset them if you're getting up frequently to go to the bathroom or something. And I was watching I think it was on one of the newer ships. I was watching a video just the other day that every light comes on. There's no control where just this light, that light, or a night light or something. It said when there's motion detected, they all come on. So, I mean, that'll wake a lot of people up. But me, yep, I have a light in my bedroom that's on all the time at night anyway. So it doesn't matter if it's light or dark. I can sleep through anything.
Yeah. And then we come into talking about excursions, about having them alone or as a group. Would you feel comfortable exploring a port on your own, or would you stick to group tours?
If it's a port I'm familiar with, then I don't mind doing some exploring on my own, because I feel comfortable knowing probably where I want to go or what I want to see and stuff. But if I've never been there, I would much rather be on a group tour so that you have safety in numbers. You've got, I like listening to the tour guides talking about, their town, their sites, their people, their culture, all that kind of stuff. So I enjoy that. But like Captain Billy and his friend, they're up in Alaska this week. They're in Juneau today, and I was watching his live just before your show, and he was talking. Or no, they're at sea today. They'll be at Juneau tomorrow, and they were talking about taking a city bus out to Mendenhall Park, which is a very good idea up there. Because the last time I was there, I took a tour out to Mendenhall Park, and it's a very nice park, and you got a nice path. You can walk all the way out to the waterfall, which is about a mile. And I'm not a fast walker, but the bus was only there for like 45 minutes to an hour. So I didn't have enough time to walk all the way out there and back. And so next time I go to Juneau, I'll just take the city bus out there so I can spend more time out there, take my time getting out to the waterfall and seeing other things that are available out there. So there's pros and cons either way. If you do things on your own, you just have to make sure to keep track of the timing, because the ship's not going to wait for you if you miss it.
It won't.
And if you're on a ship tour, they will at least wait for you if for some reason you're late arriving back to the ship. And some private tours also will guarantee that as well. But you can't always count on that.
You can't always count out. Like when I was on the Booze Cruise 1.0 out of New Orleans on what ship? Carnival Glory. When we went to Cozumel, we were supposed to do a Mexican cooking class, but somehow me and my buddy got convinced to do Paradise Beach, which is done privately.
Yeah.
And I was like a little sketchy because I'm a big advocator, always book through the cruise line.
Yeah.
Especially
if it's a place you're not familiar with.
Because if something does happen along the line, the ship will wait for you.
Yep. And I was on a cruise once. I think it was a big one. A bunch of us were on the Celebration, and we had a bunch of people like John from the Ship Show and a whole bunch of well-known cruisers in the travel community. Well, John's tour one day was late getting back to the ship.
I think I remember hearing about that one.
Yeah, because remember, I'm drawing blank at some names now, but she just got married to or within the last year or so. Anyway, I'm drawing blank. We were talking, and we had heard an announcement that we would be late in leaving because they were waiting for a last-minute tour. And about that time, we got all these text messages from all the friends that were on that tour. They were on a boat tour, and the boat ran out of gas. So they had to wait for another boat to come and then bring them. And they were, the ship didn't waste much time. They dropped them off on the ship, and they probably no sooner got the door closed than they were going because the ship was moving before we could see the boat pulling away from the ship. So they didn't waste any time. But at least they waited for them and got them there on the ship. So, of course, John enjoyed it and made a big to-do about it on his videos. So,
Of course. But yeah, like I was mentioning with mine, like I was a little sketchy because like this was the first time I've ever ventured off on my own that's not through the cruise line. And what had me on the safety security net was I knew a whole bunch of people.
that helps.
So I knew, okay, as soon as I start seeing these people leave, and these people leave, and these ones leave, okay, maybe it's time for me to leave.
Yeah.
Because if they're leaving, that should be a good hint. I should be leaving too.
The closest I've ever come to being a pier runner or whatever, in Cozumel, they got 3 different docks there.
Correct.
One is predominantly Carnival, another's predominantly Royal, and then another one is kind of like everybody else. Well, the Carnival and Royal one are pretty close together, but the other one, it can be like about a mile away. Well, I was at the Royal cruise one time, and I wanted to go to the Effie store at the Carnival port. And it's not that far. You could easily walk between the two of them.
Mhm.
Well, I spent a little too much time at the Effie store, like I've been known to do. And as I was walking back, all of a sudden I heard a ship horn going, and I thought, oh, crap. Well, luckily it wasn't our ship. There was another ship at the same port where we were. Well, when I got off the ship, we were the only ones there. So I got all panicky thinking it was our ship getting ready to leave. And I still had plenty of time, but that was the closest I've ever come.
Yeah, because like we mentioned, if you're privately, that ship's not going to be holding up for you at all.
Yep.
And
it's at your expense too.
yes,
Don't
it
get
for sure is.
they'll get, I don't know if they get all of your stuff, but they'll at least get your passport and stuff and have that off on the pier for you, so that you can, make arrangements. But any cost involved in either getting back home or getting to the next port is all at your own expense. They don't cover any of that. So they'll help you with connections and advice. But when it comes to money, and you snooze, you lose.
It's on you.
Yep. And of course, Cozumel is one of those ports where everybody likes to watch the pier runners. So
that's the pier runner destination.
Yep.
Like for me, when I do Booze Cruise 3.0, I'm actually venturing off on excursion by myself. But naturally, I'm going to make sure I have a good digital watch, and I might even set it about 2 hours early, ahead of schedule. So if it's really 12 o'clock, it's going to tell me it's 2 o'clock.
It's always better safe than sorry.
And I'm going to probably do that on purpose. So then I may think, oh, shoot, we need to get going. We're going to be late. But really, we're not.
Yep. You don't want to push it at the last minute, because there's no better way to ruin a vacation than to put that kind of stress on you.
Because with one of my previous cruises within this year, we had our airfare booked through the cruise line, and a hiccup occurred along the way of getting us to the cruise port. Well, unfortunately, we didn't make it to the cruise port, so they had to reroute us to the next cruise destination. And actually, that's at their expense, because
and that's another very good point there, is if you can book your air, especially these days with as erratic as air schedules are and stuff. If you can book your air through the cruise line, they will ensure that, if something goes wrong, you at least do get to the cruise ship somewhere. And a lot of people say, well, they can get cheaper rates themselves and stuff. They're not making money on these airfares and stuff. It's a convenience for you. It's just like when you book through a travel agent. The travel agents make their money off of the cruise lines, or they don't even really make much on airlines and hotels. They make it mostly on the cruise lines, but they don't charge you a fee to do anything that they do. And it's always nice to have somebody else worrying about things for you.
Exactly. Now, I'm not trying to scare people off from booking through the cruise line, because that is obviously the best way to always go, because they will get you to the next port of call.
Yep.
What they won't do is cover all the extra costs of a hotel, transportation, food. They don't cover that. So that's where you want to start talking about insurance.
Oh, yes.
That's where your insurance stuff kicks in.
Yep. Insurance is so important. And so many people think, oh, I don't need that. Well, it's like anything else when it comes to insurance. Nobody thinks you need it until you need it. And then if you don't have it, oh boy. Because the simplest thing medical-wise in the on board the ship can cost you hundreds or thousands of dollars. And that's not counting if you have to go ashore for anything. And look at Lindy Lou. You know Lindy Lou, right?
Yeah, from Vegas,
Yep.
Right?
From what?
Las Vegas?
Yep. Or she's actually in Reno, was in Reno, but
yeah.
When she went on that last cruise last year with John and his group, she wasn't feeling well before she got on the cruise, and she ended up developing a very severe case of pneumonia and had to be taken off ship, I think in Aruba. I can't remember for sure, but and in the hospital for an extended stay before she was well enough to even bring back to the U.S. Luckily, she had insurance to cover all of that, because if she hadn't had coverage of insurance, she could have spent tens of thousands, or if not more, on all of that care. So she was very fortunate to have had insurance, because it was it was probably close to a month before she made it back home after all of that. So you got to have the insurance because it covers so many things that you don't even think about. And if you lose your luggage, if you miss a flight, if you have to put up in a hotel, food, transportation, all that kind of stuff, it doesn't seem like much, but boy, try to do that in a foreign country somewhere. I remember before cruising started, we were in, I think we were in Cancun, and I was going to be staying at a place for 9 days, and a lot of the people just were staying for 14. So I wanted to extend my stay. Well, I had only brought enough of my medication for the 9 days. So I contacted my doctor to see, well, can you send me a prescription here that I can get filled while I'm here, just for, a few days or whatever. And they can't do that. U.S. cannot send a fax prescription refill in a foreign country. They can mail it, but of course, by the time it would make their mail, we'd be home already. So luckily, they advised, well, do you still have some left? And I had called before the last day, so I still had some left. They said, well, space it out, because I wasn't on anything that if I didn't have a dose, I was life-threatening or something. So they said, just take your pills like every other day or something. And so I was able to spread them out to cover the rest of my trip while I was there. But things like that, if I'd have had something important and something happened to me medically, and if I'd have had to go to the hospital there and didn't have insurance, I'd hate to imagine what final bill would come up for something like that. You hear all kinds of horror stories of that.
And I've even heard horror stories where they won't let you leave until it's paid.
Yes. So if you don't have insurance and you get stuck with a $100,000 bill and you don't have a way to pay it, you may become a resident of a new country for a while.
Yeah. So it's always best because, luckily, like I said, we booked ours through the cruise line, so they took care of the airfare. But if it wasn't booked for them, then it's always would be, we gotta make the call. Okay, do we say come back home and forbid the trip, or find a way to pay the new costs to continue the road on? And then it just adds more to the bill. So always have the travel insurance, no matter if you're cruising or driving, whatever the case may be. It doesn't even have to be related to traveling solo. But the 9th one I came up here with is Adventures of Solo Cruising. What's one thing you love to do on a cruise that you probably couldn't if you had traveler companions?
Lots of things. Like I mentioned earlier, it's nice when you don't have to check in with somebody, or you don't have to ask permission, or say, do you want to do this, or do you want to do that, or where do you want to go now, and all that stuff. That is one of the things that I enjoy the most. It's very relaxing because you don't have that stress of having to worry or keep track of another person. And you really end up learning a lot about yourself along the way, because I learned so much about myself on that first cruise that allowed me to become the solo cruiser that I have over the years. And, there's a lot of good to be had in something like that when you learn more about you and things that make you happy, and it's a good experience all the way around.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully one of these days I can convince myself to find a cruise where I can travel solo. But like I mentioned earlier, and I know Dewey has, really at the end of the day, you're really not traveling solo. You're just traveling solo and sleeping alone.
Yeah, that's what I love to tell people. Most of the time you're sleeping solo, but you're traveling with thousands of other people. So So if you don't choose to talk with anybody, then it may feel a little lonely, but you always got somebody willing to listen to what you got to say, or to help you with advice, or just shoot the shit. And especially with all the alcohol that flows on the cruises, a lot of people get a lot more chattier. So it's a good environment to be on once you get yourself used to it. So
Yeah. And then the final one is the final takeaway: community engagement. If you're cruise solo, what your best tips? And if you haven't yet, what the one thing you would make you want to try it? Dewey, you want to start with that one?
I think one of the things about traveling solo that would be better when you have a companion is when you are hesitant about trying some new things. Because sometimes even though I'm experienced and outgoing and all that stuff, sometimes I'm still a little hesitant to try something new or different. Whereas if you've got somebody with you, it's not as scary to try something new or different when you've got somebody there with you to do it. And so that sometimes can be advantageous. The person that I'll be traveling with in March, we've been on 3 or 4 other cruises before, and we have a lot of similar likes and stuff. So it's easy to talk about what we want to do, what we don't want to do. I think the first time I ever did not cruise solo was with Larry from Canada there on the Helping Hands for Cruising cruise. He and I shared a cabin for that one. And that was the first time I shared a cabin with somebody other than my wife. So that was a different experience, but it was enjoyable. I liked having somebody to talk to, and we didn't have to be joined at the hip to do anything. But if we were doing the same thing together, then we were there together. If not, then he did his thing, I did my thing, and it was really cool. We enjoyed it.
Yeah, and like I said, for me, like eventually one of these days, I'm gonna pull the plug, put the plug in, and adventure off my own, because I can't always expect that my schedule is going to line up with my travel plan, whether it be my mom, my friend, or whoever else it may be.
Oh, yeah.
And nor can they expect that my schedule is going to line up with theirs. Because at the end of the day,
that was one of the big things during COVID, when that I was lucky. I retired just before COVID hit. So timing wasn't as big an issue for me. I didn't have a job I had to go to. I didn't have, a lot of these entanglements that restrict me. So every time something got canceled, I could very easily just book another one and right away, because it's like, keep them going. But not everybody can do that, because people, especially people that work, they've got to build up the vacation time to do it. They got to get approval for the time. If they're traveling with family, then you got to arrange it around your partner's work schedule, your kids' school schedule. There's so many things involved. Whereas, with me, I didn't ever have to worry about any of that. If one cruise got canceled, I just went down the list and said, okay, let's book this one instead. And it wasn't a problem for me. So that's one of the things when you are retired and solo, that it makes things so much easier. Now, if you're a younger person still working and all, that's you still have those issues, but you're only worrying about it for one person instead of multiple.
Exactly. And like for me, like I'm booking cruises like way out. Like I'm already booking cruises into 27, and by the end of the year, I can even be going into 28.
Yeah.
Because I'm booking so far out, it's like, okay, let's do this, let's do this, let's do that. So at least there's time to build up the vacation funds and.
Yeah, that's a big thing, is saving up the money. When you book a cruise, a lot of times you need time to save that money to pay for it. So, and like I always tell people, don't hesitate to book a cruise, because if the price goes up, they'll never charge you more for it. If the price goes down, then you can very easily get a reduction in your rate. And if you've already paid it in full, well, then you can get maybe upgrades or bonus credits and stuff like that for the difference. But and if you need to cancel it, as long as you cancel by the cancellation time, that's no problem either. But if you wait too long to book a cruise, it may become very pricey compared to what it was a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever. And then you're stuck with a higher rate and you're stuck with less choices because then so many other things are booked as far as cabin types, shows, dining, all that kind of stuff. So the longer you take in making your plans, the more difficult it is to make the plans you really want. So I always tell people, never be afraid to book. You can never book too early, but you can always book too late.
Exactly. And the other thing I always throw in there is always book with a travel advisor.
Yes.
Because they are there on your side.
Yep. And it's so nice when something goes wrong, you can call them and let them deal with it while you're still having fun on your vacation. I technically am a travel agent through cruise programs, but I don't book anybody else's stuff other than my own stuff when I'm not booking it through a casino deal. And what really discouraged me was traveling with my travel agent before and seeing how many things they had to deal with while on the cruise that kind of dampened their fun on the cruise. And it's like, I don't want to be going on a cruise and worrying about somebody else's issues on another cruise. I want to have fun. And so it was all about me. That's what's most important.
Mm-hmm. Like for me, like I will book anyone who wants to be booked. But
I would if somebody asked me.
I mainly book myself and close friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm willing to book other people too. But depending on what they want booked, I'll either accept the booking or I'll say, okay, I'll pass on to the person I know that will take that kind of booking.
Yeah. And that's important too, is booking through a travel advisor, you get to reap the benefits of their knowledge. Because especially if you're not a very experienced traveler, it's so nice to have somebody who's been there, done that, knows the ins and outs, knows what to recommend for you to do or to see or all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you're doing it on your own, you're just shooting in the dark. You don't know if you're going to have a hit or a miss.
Yeah. Like, for example, if someone comes to me and asks me about Disney, I'm going to pass you off to someone that knows Disney more than I know. Because I don't know a lot about Disney.
Yeah. That's what, especially living down here in Florida, people just assume you already know everything there is about all the Disney parks. Last time I was in a Disney park was in 1991. Well, just because I live here doesn't mean I'm a pro on it.
Nope. But as soon as they start talking about Norwegian, I'm your guy. Because I know Norwegian. I know a bit of Carnival and I know a bit of Royal, but mainly I'm the Norwegian person.
Yeah. And I love offering advice and hints and ideas and stuff to people if it's something I am familiar with. But like you said, if I'm not, then I'll surely help find somebody who is. And it's you don't want to ruin somebody's vacation because of your lack of knowledge. You want them to have the best experience they can have. So, why not help find them the best connection?
Yeah, because even though, yes, you're throwing away business, you're really setting them up for a great vacation.
Yeah, and that reflects good on you for future.
And it reflects good on you because now when they want to book another one and they know, okay, well, they gave me that person, maybe I'll try them again, to try and give the business to them.
Exactly.
And if they know the knowledge there, or if they know someone that knows that's what they want, like speak to that person because they know the knowledge of that product. So it's basically all about the knowledge of the products.
Yep.
And you want them to have the best vacation because I can tell you the good, bad, and the ugly about any product. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure you have the best vacation you possibly can.
Oh
Whether,
yeah.
whether it be you're traveling solo, you're traveling with family, friends, whatever it may be. But traveling solo, to me, eventually one of these days, I definitely will eventually try because, like I said, I can't always rely on my schedule lining up with everybody else's. So far, I've been lucky and it's been lining up, but eventually it may not line up one of the days.
Yeah.
When I
Well,
want
that's
to.
one of the bad things about booking things far in advance. There's too many things that could happen between now and then too that you have no way of foreseeing. So, you know, a lot of times I always tell people, you know, don't just because you can afford it, don't pay it in full too soon because then you may find it more difficult to get out of it. Because once you pay it in full, not all of them are fully refundable fares. So if you pay it in full early and then all of a sudden a year from now something's happening you can't go, you're going to be SOL. So if you wait until the final due date to pay it in full, even if you just have to set that money aside in a savings account or a CD or whatever, so then at least you'll have that freedom to make changes.
Yeah, because like, let's just pull a random number out of the hat of $2,000, and you got that $2,000 that you could just easily pay it off right here now and then, but the cruise is not for another 2 years. But the price is only $500. Drop that $500, invest the $1,500 over the next year and a half. Put it in an investment, so it's now technically tied up, but it's going to be released in time for you to pay it off. Well, not only
why let the cruise line use your money when you can use it better?
Now, not only you got that, say, $1,500, you're now also going to get the interest off of that $1,500.
Yep.
So now you're walking off with more than $1,500.
And that's why during COVID, with all the cancellations and stuff, people were always wondering why I was rebooking things so much because well, what if COVID, isn't over with by then? I said, well, then I'll just keep rebooking. But to me, that was like investing in travel because every time I would cancel a cruise, you get extra credit. Well, I would just use those credits and book more cruises because I knew I was going to go once they started. It wasn't like I had to wait for vacation time or approval from work or anything like that. So I just kept instead of investing the money, I just kept investing in more and more cruises. So the first couple of years that I was cruising, once it started, it wasn't costing me anything because most of it was just reinvesting from all the cancellations. And then once I had to start paying for it again, well, that's why I'm broke now.
That's when it all caught up and said, okay, maybe I need to start slimming down on them.
Yeah, but it became quite different when all of a sudden you have to start paying those bills.
But yeah, no, like me and you have cruised at least once. Hopefully we're going to get twice.
Yeah.
We don't know when that twice is going to occur, but it will eventually strike again. But that was a great cruise that me and you did on the Magic.
Yeah, we enjoyed that. So, and that's one of the nice things about cruising frequently. Very, very often you'll run across people Maybe you've never met them face to face, but you may know them from online, on YouTube or something, or maybe it is people that you've cruised with before. I've run across a number of people on ships that, say, hey, weren't we on such cruise together? Yeah, I remember you. And I have a very bad head for names, but there's been a few times where I've even shocked them because I can remember their name. It's like, they kind of give you that look like, really? Because I ran across somebody on the first time I was on Mardi Gras. Then the next time I was on Mardi Gras, which was substantial time later, I saw that person again on the same cruise. And I remembered their name. And that shocked them. And they remembered my name, which didn't shock me. But you run across people all the time that you've seen on other cruises or, wherever you know them from. And the more you travel, the more you're going to run across people. So,
And the more bigger your connections get.
oh yeah,
So
and
then the more.
almost without a doubt, every cruise I'm on, there's probably at least one or two people that I become like lifetime friends with, where I'm in touch with them on Facebook, or we message frequently, or try to plan cruises together. There was one cruise. Remember Papa Mozo's last cruise?
Yeah.
I was on that cruise with him and Mama Mozo. And of course, he had to turn in the evening quite a bit. So a lot of the evenings I spent in the piano bar, where I met a group of people on that cruise that we became so close, where we all stay in touch through Facebook, through Messenger and stuff. I've been on 2 or 3 other cruises with various members of that group since then. And it's like, if I hadn't have been on that cruise, I'd have never met these people. And so it's just, there's advantages all the way around. And even the piano player I'm still in touch with. I just got an email from him the other day. So you never know.
Yeah, and like you never know, because you might just shoot off just a quick message. Hey, I'm gonna be on this sailing out of here. Blah 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 blah. Next thing you know, you might be surprised. Hey, I'll join you.
Mhm. I have a list on my phone. I call it my cruise wish list. So people I know that have cruises booked, whether it be group cruises or if there's just individuals that I know and I like to travel with, I'll have in that list. So whenever I get, like these offers for from the cruise lines for um, casino cruises or any kind of opportunity, I can go through that list and see, okay, what ship do I want to be on when? Because I've traveled solo enough now that if I'm going to cruise more, I'd like to do it with people I know, because I can do things here at home alone just like I can on a ship,
Correct.
and save me a lot of money on top of that. And one of the good things with not cruising so much, I've lived here now 4 years, but only the last year or two have I started to discover where I live. Because the first 2 years or so I was on cruises so much I was never home. So people would say, well, you're familiar with the area. What can you tell me? And I said, no, I'm not. I know how to get to the airport and the cruise port, and that's about it. So now I'm discovering and doing things and learning things here where I live instead of on cruise ships. So that has its pros and cons too.
Yeah, because before it was really more of you were on vacation when you were at home.
Yeah.
And when you're at home, you're really on the ship, because the home is your ship.
And I still have people now, when they message me or something, they say, are you at home or are you on a ship? And it's like, these days I'm at home. I've only been on one other cruise this year, and I've only got one other one planned. So that's been a long time since I only had, 2 or 3 cruises in 1 year. And I've got one cruise already scheduled for next year. And I've got a second date that I'm already trying for, but I haven't had any offers for it. And I've got a couple others on the wish list for next year that I'm watching out for. So
yeah, like all my cruises are already booked up for next year. So like my schedule for cruising is all filled up. I can't, as much as I would love to squeeze another in there, I just can't do it.
And when I started cruising, I was like that too. I was booked out for 2 and 3 years.
Yeah.
So whenever somebody wanted to know if I was available, it wasn't so much about, do I want to go? It's like, well, let me check my schedule. It's like, okay, I can squeeze you in between this one and that one.
Yeah, my biggest one is coming up after this one, when I go down to what I call the land of down under. And we were only going to go down for a 6-dayer, and I saw there was a 3-dayer on the front end. It's like, let's see what the 3-dayer is going to cost. Oh, it's fairly reasonable. So
You
can I
might as
squeeze
well
that?
do it all at one time, because you got to pay. It's
so
a major cost just to get there.
Can I squeeze that 3-dayer in there? I was able to squeeze it in. And what sold it to me was it was a cruise to nowhere. Where in the
Wow.
States, you can't have that.
Yeah.
A cruise to nowhere. So
Yeah.
I wanted to have the experience of a cruise to nowhere. Just go out, float around, and come on back in.
Yeah. I really wish they would change that law so that we can do that more here, because that would open up so many cool possibilities for people.
Because why should you have to go to a foreign port just to obey with that law? Yes, it's a law because you have to follow the law, but
The purpose of the law no longer exists. So, back when it first created, it was meant to keep people from using the shipping lines and stuff as you know cheap transportation from one place to another here in the country. Well, that doesn't exist now because you can get around the country, flying, trains, cars, in so many different ways. So that's not so important now, but nobody's bothered to take the time to change that rule either. So they started to go that way during COVID, which was nice, but then COVID ended and we forgot all about that. So we're still stuck with it.
yeah. And I remember during the co-rares, we had to, when I say we, I'm referring to the Americans, had to apply for permission to cruise to Alaska, but not have your foreign port stop in Vancouver or Victoria.
Yeah.
Because we up here did not open up our waterways to nobody. We had it shut down.
And
So-
that was kind of a matter of necessity because Alaska couldn't afford to have another season canceled. So they needed to do that for economic necessity. So they could do it then. Who's to say why can't they do it now? It's like
Now should they stop going to all foreign ports? No, because that's going to hurt the other economies.
yeah.
But if they come out and say maybe 50, maybe 25%, we'll say, of the cruises that you run can do this, but the other 75% have to go to a foreign stop. At least now there's flexibility of, on these select sailings, we can now do without it. And you would see an increase within cruising. That's my little rumble on the foreign cruise.
One of these days.
Even though that's a little off the topic of solo cruising. But yeah, but no, like I said, all right, one day I will try it, and who knows who I may meet. Maybe I might be spot 8. I know you. You do?
You never can tell.
You never can tell because, we are here live on YouTube. And they may say, I know you. You're that YouTuber such and such.
That's one thing that, and I am involved in the YouTube travel community, but I'm really not much of a YouTuber because I haven't posted that much. But I had posted enough and people have seen me enough that I was on one cruise one time where 2 different groups of people recognized me. And that made me feel so awesome because, now I know what all the big YouTubers feel like when they get recognition. And the funny thing was, on this one particular cruise, D&J, you know who they are. Yeah. They were on that cruise, and one particular time somebody recognized me but didn't recognize them. And I thought, a little beaming pride there. So it was a weird feeling. It's like, I just think how easily I'd be recognized if I was doing videos all the time.
Exactly. But we're almost at that hour and a half mark, and I think it's about around that time we should start shutting this one down. So I would
It's
like
been
to
a lot
thank
of fun. I've enjoyed it.
I'd like to thank all the viewers for coming on out. And if you are part of Team Replay, let us know in that comment section down below with 5. Man, that's with that little green screen 5 cruise ships down there, and say that you're part of Team Replay, and let us know, would you ever do a solo cruise if you haven't done it yet already? And if so, what did you think about it? Let us know in that comment section just right down below. And of course, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe with the bell notification set to all, and share. So once again, thank you for coming out tonight. And of course, until next time, I will see you on the high seas or wherever travels may take us. Till then, bye for now.
So long, everyone.